Hello and welcome to this edition of The Verified with me, Mustafa Kedab. Today we have a lot of questions regarding um, a survey that almost everybody is asking about. It's a survey that's been released by Gambian President, conducted by Cyprus, a very widely known um, um, institution that's been conducting similar surveys in the past. I mean, in the past 3 years or maybe more. Um, to discuss this subject with me is Mr. Sait Matty Jaw, who works with Afrobarometer, and they've done quite a number of similar surveys. Mr. Jaw, welcome to this to Verified.
Thank you, Mr. Darboe. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Great. Uh, so yesterday, day before yesterday,
Mhm.
online, everyone is talking about this survey. Well, of course, they're raising a lot of questions, which we will discuss subsequently.
Mhm.
But of course, we will start with the assumption that everything is okay, and of course, the data is it's good.
Mhm.
We have the data, um, and the first thing that jumps at me when I looked at it was the popularity of the political leaders
Mhm.
in terms of, for now, let's look at, for example, Barrow. Um, Majority of folks say Barrow should not run for a third
Mhm.
term.
Yeah.
Majority of folks say Ousainu Darboe, the leader of the United Democratic Party, should not run.
Mhm.
And face value, I mean, based on your own observations, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I want to start by congratulating Gambia Participate and Cyprus, for this report. I think it's adding value to the already, exciting discussions that are happening within the political space, which I feel is necessary, it's important, and it's always good to have this kind of engagement,
Mhm.
especially one backed by data. I mean, in terms of your question, for me, the context is, I mean, like for all the political parties, political leaders, one
Mhm.
can look at it, deciding one time or what time frame one looks at. If you look at President Barrow, his context, he has a context when he was coming. He was coming as a transitional leader,
Yeah.
coming for 3 years and all that stuff. And then he ran again, got re-elected for the second time. So, but his message was ending self-perpetuating rule,
Yeah.
and that message still stuck with the people. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons that people believe he has served 2 times, and that's enough. For Darboe, one can look at as far back as 1996, the fact that he's been losing elections, for instance, and also some others are looking at pointing at his age as one of the reasons why he should not contest.
Mhm.
And so, this could be part of the wider conversation in terms of, why this data is pointing to the fact that majority of respondents are saying that they should not run. So for me is, but what I'm also sensing is that most Gambians want new kind of a new phase in the political process, new kind of leadership, and I think that's what for me that's my initial assessment.
I mean, it's quite interesting, though. I mean, if, say, Barrow runs
Hmm.
in 2026 and he wins, it's still, and even though we know in choosing a political leader,
Hmm.
people have different list of questions.
Yeah,
So, for example, they could choose Barrow not because they want Barrow, but because they are dissatisfied with
yeah, of course.
with the potential
Yeah.
replacements. So, even in that case, we still have significant level of significant question mark over legitimacy,
Hmm.
even after you win the elections. Because, I mean, in politics, it's not just winning by a huge margin; it's
Hmm.
also you can win by a tiny margin and
Hmm.
still,
Yeah, that's the debate between the simple majority and absolute majority.
yeah,
If we're looking at the electoral outcomes,
yeah.
yes. But for me, legitimacy needs to be framed within whether he have the right to contest, and if he contests, if he gets the vote, how are those votes going to be translated? And I think for us at this minute, we have this simple first past the post system. If one runs wins with one, um, you know,
But
uh,
that still has huge questions over mandates. Like, for
of
example,
course, of
if
course.
you have 5 million people
Hmm.
and only, let's say, 20% of them vote for
For
you,
you, yeah.
and but because of one past the polls and too many people were contesting, you happen to win.
I mean,
that still means that a lot of significant number of your population don't like you.
Of course,
they don't think you are fit to be president.
We have examples of 2016. The people that did not vote for Barrow were, way more than those that voted for him.
Yes.
But he ended up becoming the president. So I'm saying, yes, that's the argument there. But the fact that people accept this system, that this system currently is what is working for the country. So for me, I see it as a legitimate system, and that's why if you look at both the 2020 and 2024 draft, they're talking about moving from this simple majority system to an absolute majority. At least that way, it solidifies what you were saying in terms of the legitimacy aspect. That before you become an elected leader, unless you have more than half of the population in support of you, but having less is problematic. And of course,
Well, it says, for example, majority of the Gambians say, and this is very interesting regarding the issue of what makes people tick. Like voters are quite a very complex machine. Yes, they are difficult to understand voter behavior. Because, for example, if you look at the data, it says that majority of Gambians believe Barrow should not run. And out of 55% who believe he should not run, up to around 60% of the respondents say they would not vote for him. If he runs, they will not vote for him. 55% of the people say he should not run. They believe he should not run. But up to around 60% of the people say they will not vote for him. But if you look at the number of people who said Ousainu Darboe should not also contest, the number of people who say Ousainu should not contest is more than what the number of people who say Barrow should not contest. And it seems to be the case that even in terms of people against political leadership or for them to contest, Barrow is still doing better than Ousainu.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, that's why I say, like, because for Ousainu is mostly there's a lot of, and I think the study at some point noted that that some the age issue. I mean, age is a major. I mean, it's a talking point in this country. We have ageism. For me, I don't really care. I mean, as long as you're a Gambian, you should be free, and you should be free to present yourself, and people should be able to pick you. That's my own personal position. But even if you look at the CRC during that discussion, people were talking about age. Even though now we don't have any particular age limit in the country, part of the popular narrative is about that. So for him, I think that's one of the reasons, and that has been following him. But also, he's also seen as someone that has contested elections on numerous occasions and losing, and so that is that. So, but of course, for me, the bottom line is also that majority of Gambians are looking forward to new faces, and for me, that's what I'm seeing. They want new faces. They want those new politicians.
But new faces, what do you mean? Because a lot of these politicians are already.
Well, they're old, huh?
They are already in the politics for maybe close to 5 years.
So for me to say that these two should not, it means like within those political parties they can look for new, young, dynamic individuals that can replace the old faces.
They don't seem to be in the mood for that, because already clearly we know within both NPP and UDP they are set on who the choice of leadership.
Yeah, so also
not necessarily set on who the choice, but it seems to be a very contentious issue.
Yeah, because for us the way we see politicians and political parties is also different from how they organize and strategize within themselves. What we do, they also have their own mechanism and means of seeing who is the most lucrative candidate for them, and then they pick that. So for me, usually, sometimes people talk about, oh, you need to change. I mean, for me, that is the responsibility of the political party to decide on that. If they want to let them bring a 100-year-old person, or somebody bring 10-year-old, it's the choice of the people, and that's for me the interesting part. These choices, the choices that Gambians are making in terms of who to elect, and who not to elect.
I will come to two interesting things that is coming out of this. that one, a potential for a merger outside of both UDP and NPP, and two, the issue of not just a coalition, but also the issue of the undecided voters, which will take us back to the legitimacy issue. But let's look at sort of the nationally. It says still, regardless of the popularity contest between Ousainu and Barrow, or NPP and UDP as it is, Barrow still leads regardless of all the points he drops.
Overall, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's also an interesting, and for me, that's why I also say that each of these questions should be treated like separately or individually. People can say, well, have the option that okay, Barrow should not run, as part like it's some sort of philosophical. We're talking about soul in terms of possibility, but in the case that when the reality comes, then the individual also have to evaluate. If Barrow say now he want to contest, and now in 2026 he contest, so now individuals now, let's say today that if he runs, they're not going to vote for him. Now they have to reevaluate among all the candidates that are present to see if they can, if he's the one that they're going to vote for or not. But also, if you look at the other question, I mean, for me, I'm thinking maybe respondents we are looking at, okay, outside all these different factors that we discussed, now here's another question.
This is the alternative.
Yeah, that shows that with
Barrow versus the alternatives.
Yes, alternative.
But even if you look at some of the new faces, like for example Bensouda, Talib, right? Even if you look at Talib, where they are asked in place of both Talib and Ousainu, Talib seems to do 18, and Barrow is at 31%. So even if you put Ousainu and if you put Ousainu and Barrow Talib together, even that is not.
Yeah, so that makes it interesting, because this one has 12 and the other one has what, 18.
Yeah, so they are 1%.
1% difference. But you have about how many undecided?
Yeah, you have 29%.
Yeah, so it is showing you like a united UDP front has a chance, because if you look at both candidates, Talib and
it has a chance, considering it could
depending on the candidate,
sort of, yes,
and it can create a lot of challenge for the NPP. So for me, like right now, this survey is just pointing us to the possible scenarios that are likely to come. And so it is showing you that if there is a coalition, there's a possibility that Barrow will lose. But without a coalition, as it is now, for instance, if UDP
holding all factors constant is going to win. But then if you look at it, I mean, you look at all the you look at nationally and all the past data that's been collected. So, for example, you guys have done a data, Afrobarometer, I mean.
Yeah.
You've done a survey which was released in 2025 January, and it correlates with this particular finding regarding the popularity of the political candidates as a respect of Ousainu and Barrow, because on that survey also Barrow is leading 27%, and I think Ousainu 17%, because it says UDP's candidate.
Yeah, so we looked at the party candidate. If all these political parties, we have to put up candidates, and today was the election. Which of the candidates parties would you elect?
Yeah.
And yes, of course, I think if I remember, Barrow came 27, and then you have UDP 17%.
Yes.
But this was a study that we did in 2024.
2024, but then they published in January
2025. Yes, because the way we release our data is like that. So so you could see it from that angle. Yes, that NPP, and especially when we look at rural urban, we see that NPP is very strong when it comes to the rural communities.
Yes. And this data is not any different.
Yeah. So
in respect of that, I mean, for example, NPP seems to be very strong in Basel.
So then the question is, why is MPP strong in this area and not strong in the other area?
In the urban areas,
that's a question for the politicians to start thinking for themselves. that maybe, the kind of development that we are doing in the rural community in
Yeah.
Basse, everybody have seen the transformation that has
The
happened
roads,
yeah, and here, even for those regions that talk about whether Barrow should continue, we saw that Basse is one of those
Basse is
regions.
the highest.
It is the highest.
Yes.
So you can see, like, for them, they're directly benefiting.
Basse area is also his home.
Yeah, it's his home, but also they benefit. It's not just because
Yeah.
it is his home, but they benefited from the infrastructural development that are happening.
Yeah.
Now going to Basse, traveling is easier. So you could see that. So people will evaluate that. Of course, we've been here for 50, 60 years.
But then again, you see 19% says they refuse to answer.
Yeah.
17% says they don't know. That's your survey. That's the Afrobarometer survey.
Yeah.
There still seems to be a huge amount of people who are neither here nor there.
Yeah, so the other day I was also running the Afrobarometer data from 2018 to now to look at data around closeness to political parties.
Yeah.
I noticed that during election year, for instance, 2018, when we asked people close to political parties, many were not close. But then it increased around 2021 when we did the other survey, and in 2022 it declined, and so 2024 I think also still the same in terms of the closeness of political parties. But so it's showing for me what the data is telling me is that around election period, people start aligning themselves in terms of what party to support or not. But after the elections, people go on do their own business. So for me, this particular one is similar to that.
But then, if you look at that same data you guys have published, between 20, this must have been 20. Was in 2021.
Yeah.
The data you published from 2018 to 2021. The popularity Barrow enjoyed declined significantly. Because in 2018, he was the most trusted political leader in the Gambia.
Yeah.
By 2021, it declined to 49%.
Of course. I mean, yeah. So for me,
so it's not a vote of confidence on Barrow administration necessarily, as it were.
Yeah. So, but for me, I think one time we were doing this dissemination, and somebody was asking me, you list all this different stuff, and it doesn't reflect what is also happening. But if you look at the decline from 2018, we are talking about what was that period? That was a period of, it was still in the honeymoon of the transition, things were together and all those different stuff. But by 2019, 2020, I mean, things fall apart. And so we saw that, even the people that were supporting Barrow are likely to disapprove of his leadership. So we see that increasing as well. And I could link it to perhaps the breakaway within the UDP that gives back to NPP. But subsequently, it also keeps going down in terms of his performance. So that approval rating is basically about his performance and the way that people see it, whether he is performing as per their expectation or otherwise. And there are quite a lot of things that are still pending.
But I mean, what I don't seem to get is that, you have on one hand a president whose popularity is on a steep decline, and you have an opposition outdoing the president in a similar fashion. Like it's
no, for me,
that's stupid.
Yeah, no, that's why I said for us, like,
why is that the case?
The young ones, there are a lot of questions that I always say, like,
because if the president is doing badly, you would expect that the alternatives should be doing good.
Yeah, but then if you look at our trust level, I mean, the trust level between the opposition and the ruling party is almost at the same level. So the people don't trust political leadership.
Yeah, I see in the last some of them in the past one before the most recent one, it's religious leaders seem to be
religious leaders, traditional leaders. This traditional institution, people trust them. But I mean, that's why you have like politicians are all the same. Moto panla, you push them. they move and then they leave you behind. So there's that whole concept of not trusting political leaders because it is for themselves. I mean, but it also shows, even when it comes to contacting these political leaders, you see that many Gambians prefer to contact their alcalo, traditional leaders, or
Yeah.
religious leaders compared to the politicians.
You also have a situation where you ask folks if they had heard from their National Assembly member.
Yeah. So whether they've even whether the National Assembly members listen to them, even councillors, whether they listen, if
Yeah.
they have complaints, you see people. So there's a trust issue.
There's a
There's a
trust
trust
issue.
issue
Yes.
that we need to build, and this trust issue, when we're building it, there's supposed to be built between the state and the people, but between political institutions and also the people. And
But
political
why is
institutions
it?
include-
But why is a president who is doing badly? By all indications, because all the recent polls are showing a decline in Barrow's popularity, and they are showing people are frustrated. They are showing people think corruption is
Yeah,
going
corruption
up.
is rising up. Yeah.
People think that the state institutions are underperforming, even in your recent data that shows. And yet, people still think that, yeah, Barrow is not a good option, but he's the best of the list.
Yeah, because they also the people might not be looking at service delivery and linking that to the choices that they make when it comes to voting. Yeah, some will say, okay, it depends on the development. Anybody that brings me development, that's the one that I'm going to likely support. But others will look at it that Barrow is a peaceful president. I mean, so they're not looking at all these things that you're looking at. They just look at it like I remember the last election, we were busy talking about, we were on radio talking about why people should vote. And then you have all this older generation coming up and say, li ngeen a wax yëpp si jàmm la xëj." All that you're talking about, the development, the construction,
It's
everything
all
that
because
you're
of peace.
is because of peace. And they see Barrow
And they
as
credit Barrow as
yes, the Jama president. So I mean, so sometimes that's why for me sometimes when people are on social media shouting, doing that, I look at the way that our people look at politics. Sometimes they look at it as a sport. It's not something that they punch each other, but something like they're just doing for fun to a certain extent. And so you need to take it from that aspect. So that you can also talk about all this everyday lively matter, but for them is fatalistic. Their lives, their survival, everything is not on Barra's hand, but is in the hands of God.
Do you,
So
do you think that also there is a disconnect between the elite political players and and the people?
of course, clearly you see that. And these surveys are also showing that. You see what the people want and what the elites would choose to do.
Yeah.
Like a constitution, for instance, 71% say the country needs a new constitution, but at the elite level, they have decided, oh, this one did this one did that, And
But
then
for a lot of people, I mean, the greater degree of responsibility lies with the president. So the failure to have a new constitution you would have expected was going to cost the president and not anyone else. But
I mean, if you look at it that way, then
yeah.
okay, you say, okay, this one has a greater responsibility. Yes, what is the greater responsibility? Because remember, we need 100%. It's not like if this one did 75%, yes, he has the greater responsibility. But even the one that did 25% also contributed to that. So the contribution of all these different factors, that's what we're looking at. Everybody knows in this country that to get a constitution you need two-thirds majority. And to get that, it means people need to sit down and discuss, and those are things that we're not getting. So for me, the issue is politicians must be able to transform or to translate the wishes and the needs of the population in response to their political strategies.
I am looking at also the implications of the data. So, for example, I mean, of course, the UDP's official position still is that the election was stolen. But there seems to be every data that's coming out in terms of polls, whether by Afrobarometer or by Cyprus, doesn't seem to fall in line with that. Because, I mean, Barrow's popularity still outruns Ousainu.
Yeah.
By your study, by this study, and it doesn't seem to support their position.
Because for us also within Afrobarometer, we ask a question about the credibility of past
the elections.
Yes. And so, and even people, whether they voted, and so people will come and say, well, they were credible.
But not just the credibility part, but also the popularity part.
Yeah, the popularity.
You have both.
that is where the
pass.
choice is as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the choice. So, I mean, it depends on how people see these individual candidates as well.
Mm.
I mean, at one point, I teach this political behavior class, and at some point, I used to give example in 2016 when Mama Kandeh came.
Mhm.
People were talking about how handsome he was, the way he
Mhm.
dressed, because for some people, that is enough, enough reason to vote for them. And
Mhm.
for Barrow, he's also seen as the incumbent. Issues around development. If you support him, there's a whole likelihood that you get development. And unfortunately for that, people what they continue to talk about is his age.
Mhm.
In most cases that you
Do you think
see, and
they're distracted? I mean, you think they are distracted? I mean, the because the age debate. I mean, yeah, it's important, but
for me, it's like it doesn't make
you
sense.
think that's the main reason why you say no doesn't seem
I
to
mean,
be
there are those, and the labeling of UDP as a
as a
ethnic,
Mandinka
yeah,
party.
Mandinka party, and all those different stuff. I mean, so there's a whole
You think
different.
UDP is at this point it's a bad PR?
I mean, and this has been following them. So I read certain, commentators that say that they have to look at that. But the problem is not UDP. The
Mm.
problem is the way that people see the party. Well, of course, you can
There's
talk
a
about the
perception of the
packaging.
people
There
about
is
the
also
party.
the people,
But
their
then,
perception.
even
The-
if it's not just UDP, because there are, I mean, certainly there is Mama Kandeh, there is Essa Faal, there are other alternatives,
yeah,
but none of them come anywhere closer. I mean,
yeah, because
at least
also,
UDP seems to be doing a little bit better,
yeah,
but you have the rest far behind. I mean,
but that's also realizing, and that's why also this data is very interesting. It is showing also that we are heading perhaps to a two-party dominant system, where the contest might be between NPP and UDP, and depending on their coalitions arrangement. So despite the fact that we have like 20, 30, even 30 political party, it shows that maybe these two parties are the most dominant within our own democratic process.
but of course, also perceptions can shift as
Of
we go,
course, it
depending
changes.
on
Yeah,
what the
yeah,
political climate
yeah.
it
Tomorrow
becomes.
somebody can come up and
Yeah,
then it put aside all these different political parties. But currently, as we see with the survey, what
yeah.
the argument is that, I mean, the candidates is not the parties, but the candidates likely coming from these parties are not,
But,
based on various reasons different for each. They're not an
but
alternative.
how is it the case that Barrow is doing this well with all the corruption scandals, with all the um, perceived rising crimes?
Hmm.
I see it perceived because I haven't still see
Yeah.
a verified accurate data on this showing either a decline or a
Hmm.
rise. Um, and a lot of other issues. Uh, and still, people even think that he's underperforming. Even in public perception, his popularity has declined significantly by huge margin.
Hmm.
This is confirmed even by your survey. And yet, still, he is doing better than the opposition.
Yeah, because maybe
I mean,
here,
depending on how you look at it.
the incumbent advantage is there. I mean, of course,
What's the incumbent advantage? People have
but
already said the incumbent is not the perfect alternative.
yeah, but still, I
They've
mean,
concluded on
for some
that.
communities, it might be the fact that, I was talking about roads, for instance, the road construction, we're talking about electricity, access, and all those things. And sometimes people see these services as things that they can get from the government. So the incumbent advantage comes with all that. And there are others that will say that the more opposition good, like I'm not going to be on opposite. Whoever is there is the one that we move with. And that has
Mhm,
been part of the social cultural elements when it comes to our politics.
mhm.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, yes, you can look at that, but I think this one is more on the incumbent and what possibility, the kind of infrastructural development
Mhm.
that people are also saying, because there were communities, to access the community was problem. But these days, you see that we can debate on the quality of the roads and all those
Mhm.
different stuff, but people feel like they have access. We are
Mm.
talking about even our Afrobarometer. We track, development, availability of certain services.
Mhm.
Our number for electricity, the availability of electricity, is almost close to what the government's own data is.
Yeah.
So hopefully by the end of the year they might look at that. But so there are a lot of issues that we're looking at, issues around corruption. Yeah, but people that need those services, they tend to look at more on, okay, I get the service, and so the rest of the other debates, they leave it to you, the media, the academics, and the everyday journalists to talk
But
about.
it does seems also the case that that Barrow is still not safe. I
Of
mean,
course.
consider depending on what happens on the opposition side, whether reforms or a new player,
Mhm.
those still seem that, I mean, a complacent Barrow can still lose the elections.
Of course, I mean, for Barrow, he has a lot of baggage, and
Mhm.
this baggage was, one, the main promise for me. I keep going back to him as a person, what he told us with the 2016 manifesto,
Mhm.
ending self-perpetuating rule, but continuation to 2026 and beyond. That is saying like, yeah,
Self-perpetuation.
this is self-perpetuation.
Yeah.
And if you look at also his arguments in terms of where he needs to go, he was debating about the fact that he wants his political party's survival.
To survive.
And so now for me, I see the political party
And what he's
survival,
doing is opposite to that.
yeah, versus the broader reform that has been discussed. But
Yeah.
others can argue that say, well, that was the transition, so the transition has failed. I mean, the political parties have disintegrated, and there are no
But
coalition.
that transition was Barrow's sole responsibility. Its
Yeah, but
failure is his sole
yeah, but
responsibility.
then he was backed by certain people. So now if these people are out of it, so maybe
He
then,
was backed by UDP, but he fell out with UDP in 2019. So
yeah,
he
but
even that time he completed it
yeah, but he's
alone.
not only UDP, but only all the seven political parties, or
Yeah, no,
number of
but
political.
there were at some part of the beginning of the coalition because Barrow's political mergers kept shifting until
Yeah.
he formed NPP.
Hmm.
So at the beginning of the merger, when the rest of folks distanced themselves, they considered it a UDP government.
Yeah, yeah. When he fired,
Yeah,
removed some. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, so
You've
sometimes
had
it.
both folks like Hamad Ba, OJ, and others got disgruntled, and they have made public statements to
Yeah,
that effect. Yes.
yeah. I mean, that's also part of that. But
So at some point, somewhere around 2019 up to 2021, it was his government. So
it,
he cannot still claim that it's
so from 2017, because we do a
yeah, from
presidential.
2020 on to half of
Yeah.
2019.
So we are a presidential system. So we
Yeah.
elect the president, and the president has the power and all those different stuff.
Yes.
But so if we're looking at from within the political context
Mm,
of what were the enabling factors,
mm.
so you could see from 2017 you have the coalition all the way. Of course, UDP was its primary backer, but by the time then they separated, things started, becoming more tense in terms of the political context. But what I'm trying to say is like Barrow has those baggage,
Mm.
the issue of that, and also if you look at all these different surveys, they're talking about Gambians one term limit.
Mhm.
They one term limit, and now he's going again.
Yeah.
So and
But
that's what also the
to
surveys say.
that he could tell them, well, term limit is in the constitution and it's not. But then again, it's his
Well, now
responsibility to pass the
it's
constitution.
very. I mean, he like so sometimes when we
Mm.
individualize or singularly point,
Yeah,
the responsibility to enact a law is the borough and the assembly.
yeah. But
So for me, hmm?
in the first instance, Barrow failed to support the first draft that came, the 2022,
Of course,
and of course
for me
there are arguments there, but
the issue on the constitution is like my bottom line is like there's no interest. And
you
when
think both the opposition
of
and
course,
Barrow.
even the surveys result from Afrobarometer, we've released that both main parties are not interested in the constitution. That's the perception of the public as well, and for me, that's equally my perception.
You
Because for
think
me,
that
these
that
things.
seems to be the case, perhaps, that even though parties seem to pay lip service to 50 plus one, they still
But
don't want absolute
simple
majority.
majority
They
is a
still
strategic,
don't want
yeah.
absolute majority.
I mean, at one point, that's what I was arguing with Goodluck Jonathan when he was saying. I said it was towards the election. I say, for me, the one point that I'm seeing is this simple majority.
Yeah.
People will say, "Oh, we want simple majority," but simple majority, I mean, absolute majority is difficult to get in the Gambian
Because
context.
even across the, if you look at the data, uh, uh, I mean, Barrow would not have won Jam if it were not simple majority.
Yes, because you also have this candidate, Mama Kandeh. And I mean, I remember that time I wrote a whole piece on how Mama Kandeh was going to upset the elections in back that time, because I was also looking at, because there were people that were not in for
Mm.
Jame, they were not in for the coalition. So it was good that we have him
Baba
to
Kandeh to come
yeah
and
to come and get some
and
of the
tear Jam
most
apart.
of yeah, and so sometimes those things are good.
Mm. And another thing that the data seems to show is the implications for UDP. Um, so the data seems to suggest that if Talib forms a merger with Essa Faal and Mama Kandeh, he can still win the elections.
Yeah.
And Talib is currently in UDP, and Hussein wants to run. I mean, based on his own opinion, Hussein wants to run. Then this is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, that's why I said at some point the public perception would be like that, but
Yeah.
how the party itself deal with the issue, for me, that is what.
No. This is not the party's issue now. This is a political decision for
Yeah, but
Talib. That's what I'm
well, of
saying.
course,
I
yes,
mean,
it's a,
the implication is that, I mean, Talib will have the impression surely that
of course,
if he splits, he can negotiate with Isafal and Mama Kandeh and
yeah,
former.
because there are two questions that I found very interesting. The one that he could contest despite any political affiliation.
That's what I mean. Yes.
Yeah, the 55, I don't know, percentage
Yeah,
point,
that's
but
what it says. It says 55% believe a coalition of Bensouda, Isafal, and Mama Kandeh could win in 2026 election.
yeah, but there is also another question that talks
Okay.
about Talib specifically,
Yes.
that he should run, that people believe he should run with or without political party. So
Yes.
it's like, I mean, he's been positioned as a strong candidate, so it has some implication for him.
Yes.
And now, I mean, for the party, they might look at it, they look at this public
Yeah,
perception
because
and
it
see,
says that half of the respondents believe Bensouda should run for president,
yeah,
regardless of party affiliation.
regardless of party affiliation.
Yes, but then the problem with this is we don't know who this
Yeah, yeah. So whether these are like everybody
or NPP
who NPP
supporters
supporters,
or UDP
yeah. So I would
supporters.
have it would have been interesting for Cyprus if they have asked that kind of question or that they
Yes,
participate.
pointed
Yeah,
question so that
to yeah party affiliation, so that
yes,
they can cross tabulate party affiliation
with this data.
yeah with that.
Otherwise, at this point,
Yeah, but it's also showing if it's taken from a
it's
national,
important though.
yeah, if it is taken from a national perspective, it is showing yeah at the national level. So despite the political affiliation of any of these
He
individuals,
has some
he's a
appealing.
strong
He has appeal.
strong appeal. Yes.
Yes,
So
it shows he has strong appeal, but it would be interesting to know from which group, because also it could also mean that if NPP feels that Talib will lose, they can believe that we should suggest. I'm thinking like a conspiracy
yeah,
theorist right
yes,
now.
yes, yes. The ifs and
They could they could say, okay, let's suggest Talib so that he loses. Because I know I've read, I'm
yeah,
reading online a lot of
no, but
a lot of conspiracy theories. So
yeah,
I'm trying to digest it.
but you
This
see,
is relevant, but it's
yeah.
still important to know party affiliations of individuals saying
Yeah,
this.
so for this one, if you look at if you follow the Facebook discussions and all
Mm.
that stuff, you can even see within the UDP what people consider as camps, even though parties say there is no camp. Young, Stalin, you see
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
dynamic and how all that. So I
Which
think,
is which is which is also a natural thing.
I mean, for me, that's what we need. Political parties must fight it
Yeah,
among themselves,
yeah.
let the fittest survive,
In
and
the
then
end,
yeah, because
it's like for example me, I'm a journalist, and and I should need career progression.
yeah,
Okay, if you are in civil service, you should need career progression.
of course,
So if anybody becomes a mayor, or a chairperson like Yankuba or Talib or Lamin San
Oh yeah, that's the
landing,
expectation. Yeah.
and they don't want to become president. I don't know what they are doing in politics.
Main question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like for me, they are there to run and win, and for me, that's
Yeah.
why I said internal
Yeah.
party democracies
Yeah.
are interested.
Yeah.
And
So
so far, I like the way that UDP is trying to get people on the page to apply and then get selected. So it depends on who they select and whether he's gonna be appealing to the wider public.
and the other implication is that I mean, while Talib could be emboldened to sort of,
Mhm.
it seems because he has already publicly said that if Ousainu throws his heart in the ring, he's going to back off, and Ousainu has already said he will. So that means Talib is already
Is
cancelled
expected
out.
to.
Is cancelled out.
I mean, we are discussing politicians, so they can change their minds
Yeah, I hope he's.
every time.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he could, but by implication, I mean, he
So we'll
seems to
have
have
a.
made the people believe that he wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I think for both him and Yankuba, let's say if Dabo is running, they're not gonna run.
Mhm.
So, but for me, then it also speaks to um, you know what the people are thinking outside in terms of the survey, but also how politicians are reacting to this. The people might be demanding for a different candidate, but the party wants, if the party elects and selects somebody they feel has a better chance, that's also for them. So for me, when it comes to this party, I just leave it to the political parties to decide. I just say, okay, I mean, do your own
Yeah,
stuff.
but data it's important also to look at the perception of the
Yeah,
individuals.
yeah.
I mean, what seems to be clear. I mean, whether whether all these individuals are UDP
Mhm.
or regardless of their position, it seems to be that both Barrow and Dabo are on the decline.
Of
But still,
course.
Barrow is doing better by perception
Yeah, yeah.
than
That
Dabo,
yes.
and Talib seems to be doing very well for himself.
Yeah, he's the alternative to. We can one
He
can look at it
seems
as
to
the
be the
alternative.
poster boy
Yeah.
now, and well, based on whatever would happen before the
Yeah.
elections. There are also ongoing a lot of political activities and other activities that
Hmm.
would change
Of
perceptions
course.
of all
I
these
mean, we have
political leaders.
like how many months? I mean, I if
We
even if
have
they
1 year.
if this the same report was, I mean, survey was conducted in 3 months, the dynamics might have changed because it's also perception,
Yeah,
and that's why perception should be looked at within the time frame, and
yeah.
then so that it's something that can change.
Mm,
Yeah. So for now, this is what the situation is,
mm.
but eventually it might change. That's also the reality.
So it could lead to a split. I mean, as far as UDP is concerned, if Hussein insists on going forward.
Yeah, but it would not be the first time.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it wouldn't be.
Wajuara split.
Yeah.
But all those people who split, they didn't do very well for
Yeah, but even
themselves.
Wajuara, but Barrow,
Wa
subsequently.
also, when he was in UDP, his popularity was significant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
But when he split, he didn't do so well for himself.
yeah, but for me, it's
Of
the.
course, you could say Talib is far different from Wa, because
Mhm.
Talib is an office holder within the second biggest region in the
Yeah.
Gambia, and secondly, he has the financial wherewithal, at
Mhm.
least based on public impression, to pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, because also you need to see, like for me, I followed some of these conversations, the need for a younger person and all those different stuff. Even though I argue at some point, I said, yeah, Jammeh was young. He was 29 years old.
We've never had an old
Yeah,
president.
yeah. For us, it's mostly, especially even within the political
Gambia
bracket.
actually, yes, has
Yeah,
never
so
had
always
like a significantly very old president.
old
The
president.
oldest president we've had is Barrow.
Yes.
Barrow is 50.
Yes. So you can look at it from from that, but of course you have new generation that feel like a younger person must be there, must lead, must show the dynamic, and especially what is seen inside
Well,
that.
we've had younger persons.
Yeah, but now it's a new generation. Even that time, the young ones wanted the younger one.
Mm.
And that's why
There,
you had some slogans.
there seems to be another intriguing issue for
Mhm.
me. I'll come to other issues. But if you look at the data and you see the if there is going to be a merger, um, and so for example Talib and Essa and who Mama, and these are coming from various backgrounds. I don't see what connects the three. Yeah, it's intriguing,
You
isn't
see,
it?
I mean,
Like
for me, I
the
was
voter
also.
mind is mysterious. Like
No, but it's the agenda because one,
what
people believe,
agenda
no,
connects
people
this?
believe that coalition works in this country. That's why,
So
and
they just want change for change's
yeah,
sake.
so coalition works. One, that's the for me. That's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
And of course, these are a coalition of three individuals that are seen very popular in that sense.
But what would have been the agenda of that change? Like, are
Yeah.
people in the mood of just changing for change's sake?
I mean, like
Always.
that was the feeling in 2016. That of course we need to remove Jame for whatever the
Yeah,
whatever
then we
grievance.
find out what
Yeah, we
happens.
find what happened, and then that what happened now. People say it has to change, it has to do that. I mean, people's wants and needs will always keep coming up. I
Yeah.
mean, and they might be satisfied with you today and not satisfied with you tomorrow.
Mm.
But for for this, of course, ideologically, I
Mhm.
mean, I think you were saying like you don't see what binds them together, but maybe the interest of removing Barrow and the interest of removing Jammeh put all the previous political parties together. I mean, the interest of removing Barrow can put giving enemies of my enemies as
As my friend.
yeah. So
But then the here, okay, look, yeah, I get that because I've seen a
but
coalition
also but
2016 where
yeah.
we have different people who hate each other's
Uh-huh.
guts and they come together and
Yeah.
they yeah.
So sometimes, but also that happened with the fact that people push for the coalition. But what is interesting now is that NPP or President Barrow is not alone. He's also making himself a grand coalition of all these different political parties,
Yeah,
experienced politicians,
yeah.
and all those different stuff.
But a lot of them don't have a very significant following.
Yeah, but they are part of
Yeah, it's good for perception.
the perception, or we have all these different people
Yes.
part of that. So then you have and I think towards 2026 we see a lot of people also joining that bandwagon. But we also we are likely going to experience a different coalition. But I was also going to be interested. It was going to be interesting also for if the survey was able to look at other fixtures,
Yeah.
like
But
mix
that's
other
yeah, exactly.
individuals
You
here
know,
and
so
there.
so for the
Yeah.
and also the other question is what would have informed this?
Hmm.
Because if you just go and ask leading questions such as what do you think of the coalition between Essa Faal and Bensouda, and then it raises questions regarding why did you choose only that? Why not Dabo and
Yeah, Dago Halifa
Dabo Halifa
mix. Yeah, I
and
mean, I would
Yankuba?
have it would have
Why
added.
not?
Yeah.
But if they, I mean, that is why the data should have been like the Afrobarometer data because that gives us questions that were asked, the exact question
Hmm.
that was
Hmm.
asked, and so that people would have known that would have seen how this because if you give me options, it limits me
Hmm.
as opposed to if you give me an open-ended question.
Yeah, but then the surveys are supposed to give you options. Yeah, but then in
Yeah,
particular,
but even if you give me options, if you give me a variety of
yeah,
potential options, all
options.
options available.
Yeah.
For example, if you give me an option of, if you tell me in a situation like this, what kind of a merger would you like to see to remove Barrow?
Yeah, that's one particular question.
Yes.
They can tell you coalition
Yeah.
is in the single party led.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you give me now, if you tell me, do you think a merger between Essa Faal, Talib, and Mama Kandeh can win Barrow? Then you have excluded other
No,
potentials.
but what you could do is that you could have that one. Do you
Yeah.
think a coalition between Talib, this can? Yeah, that's one one question.
Yes.
Then you ask another question. Do you think a merger between this new guy, ADD Kamara, this and that and that, or you mix it, like you give people different options that could have added value to at least to show that there's a
Not just
possibility.
value, but also
Yeah,
a lot
there's a
of
possibility
credibility
of,
to.
yes, I mean, there's a possibility of all these different coalitions being formed. Like
Yeah.
last time, yeah. So there are those elements that need to be there.
Yeah, because without us knowing outcome of questions to other individuals and other
Yeah,
coalitions, we are limited in,
yeah,
in
yeah. We're
sort
limited.
of
We could
in,
just
in sort
say,
of how relevant this is.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a limitation to that. So
Yeah.
maybe even if we have another coalition, the
Yeah.
same score that is
Yeah.
being scored here might be
We may
similar.
even have a coalition that scores higher.
Yeah, higher than, yeah. So I think if there's a possibility to do this next time. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm expecting, that Gambia participate will continue with this. I mean, they can think about including all these different possibility, because also sometimes you hear the way that you frame Soviet questionnaire, so especially this kind of questionnaire where it is coming mostly from the kind of conversations that are happening in the public. So you just tend to focus on the first things that people are talking about, or the
Yes.
names that come up in
So
most
maybe
instances.
also because they already think that the potential succession to Dabo, most potential is Yankuba and Talib, and that's why they limit the questions to those two.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
not
and also,
possibly limiting it, but also the fact that, I mean, they have the others. So maybe these are the faces, like people that are well known, but then others there are others within the UDP that
yes,
want to read UDP
but we are
possibly.
not in a position to
To
know
know who
if
those
there
people
were
are.
others.
But these people are very visible.
Yeah.
We've seen what has been on social media. Young started here the debate. So that could be one of the reasons. But I think they would be in a better position to explain rationale
And
behind that.
I don't also see. You see, I elections are emotional
Yeah.
issues, and they said people vote with their heart, not with their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the pulse of the nation, as far as I am concerned, and this I may be biased because I'm coming from that area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming from an anti-corruption background, and I feel the pulse of the nation is corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Touch the heart, and anti-corruption. That's the spirit.
Yeah.
That's what people are talking about, and yet Barrow government has not done quite well in sort of fighting corruption, at least based on my perception and based on the data that I think we recently have. How comes the opposition, or do you think people don't think the opposition would have done better than Barrow in fighting corruption?
If you look at the trust level between the ruling and the opposition, they are almost at the same level.
Yeah.
So,
But why is that the case? Because when people think significantly that the police, government institutions are corrupt publicly.
yeah. So there's that perception. So
Yes.
for me, always I also look at, like, I mean, as an analyst, I say look at the demand side and the supply side.
Yes.
So the demand perception is that corruption is happening.
Yeah.
Almost every civil servant or everybody is corrupt.
Yeah.
But for those people, they also saying, where's that corruption that you're talking about?
Yes.
We cannot see this corruption, but even if there's that corruption, we are taking measures. We are arresting people. We are working on the anti-corruption bill. This is also gonna take time. But for me, sometimes, like, we are transitioning, but we are not asking the right question in terms of moving forward as a society that is changing, a society that is transitioning. How do we address the question of corruption? Different governments will come with different modalities. For instance, the other time I was listening to Dr. Ismaila, he was talking about not only punishment side, but how do you even do the prevention? That they are now, if you look at the way that they even raising taxes, is because they are closing gaps as a strategy in terms of fighting corruption. But then people will say, of course, you need an anti-corruption commission. An anti-corruption commission can help address the issue of corruption. But anti-corruption commission can come and still corruption continues. But the other question is, as a society, how are we shifting the discussion from this issue of corruption to be prevented rather than to start discussing around issues of integrity. How do we build integrity into our systems, into our conversations? How do we ensure that you that is working, you get better pay? Otherwise, we can keep shouting, "Oh, there is corruption. People are that. This one should be that," but we are not addressing the problems. And any
But
political
but
party.
how is not what I'm trying to get at is that how is not this a windfall for the opposition? Like how they are failing to um,
To show that corruption is a make corruption.
not
So you are
just to
looking,
show, but to
you're making it
use
making it as
like
an agenda.
Usman Sonko leveraged corruption in the Macky Sall
Yeah.
government, and that is how he created a windfall for what is his movement called?
Pastor.
Pastef,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And in the Gambia, this is
But then the issue is like it's framing.
yes,
So how do you politically frame issues?
yes,
In 2016, the coalition framed everything
human
against
rights,
Ghana human rights.
yes,
So problem was human rights this, human rights that, and
yes,
people felt the human rights issue that they were talking about. People disappeared, family members got killed,
yes,
relatives, even me, my relatives, even they've not experienced it before,
yeah,
they got to experience when I got arrested.
yes,
So at least everybody was associated with that. That of course this is there. But corruption, as much as we're debating on it, and of course now is
you
a
think it can't be filled?
yeah, yeah, it can
You
be
can't,
feel, it can be seen,
you can't touch it.
yeah, you can just suspect that somebody, maybe is
So,
corrupt.
but you can present to the public data, or you think all this order. But again, also you have UDP also holds half of the sky above the country,
Of course,
and their own councils also are implicated in a lot of.
yeah. So so for me also, I see that
Maybe that's also
I mean, I'm not saying that the corruption is not existing and things are not there. I mean, I see like for me, I'm a more of a structural person. I look at the structures as a whole, to see processes, and sometimes gaps in certain processes can lead people to do things in certain ways, and then later it does not fall into what was expected, and that becomes corruption. Even though the intention was not to abuse one's position or do that, but I mean, I think it's an issue, but issue that should not be just saying this one is corrupt, this one is corrupt. It should be debated, and we figure out the way forward towards that. Otherwise, everybody will start accusing each other of corruption, like we are doing with ethnicity. This one is tribal, this one is that.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, for me, people are still going to the same naming ceremony. They are going to the same funeral. I say, if you start not going to people's ceremonies because of ethnicity, then call me. But right now, for the politics, let them just be ping ponging each other on that one.
Yeah, and so the other issue is the issue of still there seems to be a huge margin of the voter who is undecided.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. That still gives a gap for a new
Yeah.
person.
So Gambians are close to political
Either for a
parties.
new person or for the current players to still expand the boundaries.
Yeah, because all the undecided voters are there. They see what is happening. They're not satisfied. They are not satisfied either, or it's too early. They're waiting to see what is going to happen within this period, and they react based on that. Or some of them might see and say, "Ah, I'm undecided. I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to vote." So they become apathetic to the process, and yeah. But they are also a very good. So when it comes to this kind of survey, they are a very good group to look into, especially. But it would have been, and in terms of the region, I think it has been shown where these undecided voters are, and political operatives can look at those and pinpoint, and so that there's a possibility that people in this particular region are undecided,
Or
and then we
probably
can,
do conduct their own surveys to find out why they are undecided.
yeah, because surveys should be seen as pointers.
Yeah.
You can the why question must be like what we are doing now.
Yeah.
So they have to take the data and maybe have like focus group and see why is it that people in Janjanbureh are not so interested in our own political party. What do we think are the reasons? Is it because the way we are packaging ourselves? Is it because of this and that and that? Those are the why questions that others players that are interested in this that they should do. and not
But
rely on the say the data is right or wrong. I mean, that's also.
it seems to be a huge gap if you look at it
Mhm.
between that a new political player can actually cast in on. No,
Yeah, I mean, the alternatives. Gambians, I mean, they see just two alternatives. So, I mean, people, you see it, you hear it every day in the conversation on the radio. This one should come in, this one should that. I mean, there's a whole call for that. There's a whole call for that. And I think sometime
there's
last
a
year,
call for what? An
I mean,
alternative.
I mean, that alternative.
Mm.
But it's not guaranteed that the alternative would be. It depends on who's this
Would be any
alternative.
better?
Yeah, and yeah. But for me, the question of anybody could be part of the political process. But what people need to be doing is to hold in, not to leave them again when they get elected, but to accompany them along the process. If you just elect people and expect that they will do what you expect, things change.
Mm. And if you also look at, I mean, the possibilities of a new player. If you look at all the regions
Mhm.
that have been featured, you see Barrow seems to be doing quite well, and very little. It seems there is a very little opportunity to topple him in Basse,
Mhm.
and it seems to be the case also that he's increasingly less popular in the urban areas.
Mhm.
That seems to be consistent with
Yeah,
uh,
the Afro. Yeah, yeah,
your data,
yeah.
but also the election results, the parliamentary election results.
Mhm.
If you look at,
Oh yes, yes, yes.
yes, if
And
you,
even the local government. Yeah.
yes, he seems to have done badly in most of the urban areas.
Yeah, so I mean, the needs. It also shows that the needs of the rural and the urban are also different. In this aspect, what urban voters want
Mm.
or what the issues are could be different from what the rural voters are. And I also think also that urban voters tend to be more sophisticated in terms of because they're closer to the not because they are more intelligent or anything, but because they're closer to all these events that are happening. And if you look at it now, most of the population live within the urban center. So the rural population, they are far away from the issues.
Mm.
Mostly they see politicians once every 5 years during campaign. That's mostly when parties go.
Mm.
But you have a government that is there every day.
Mm.
That is either building roads in Jara or in Basse or somewhere else, and they're seeing that, and they're seeing
Mm.
it as a government project, and so they see the presence of that. But for the opposition, if you're not consistently there, it also could be seen in that different light.
Yes, but it means also that a new person looking at this data could think, I have a chance. I can.
Oh, yeah. But then it's not just it's also about personalities.
Mm.
That's also
It's not
the
just any person.
yeah, it's not yeah, because Gambia is also a small state, and in a small society, persons matter.
Mm.
Who is Mustafa Dabo? Is he trusted? Does he have social capital? Where is he coming from? And people ask that, and these
Mm.
are very important political questions that
Mm.
electorates also do ask. If you talk to politicians when they go to campaign, if they ask for your surname, they ask you your background and all those different stuff. Those are things that also people could relate to, and those are all things that are important as much
So, for
as.
example, the I mean, the data could, the interpretation of the data could shift a little bit depending on who you speak to, but then the data may not necessarily be either wrong or right in two contexts. So, for example, where you have the separate data on Yankuba,
Yeah.
where it says that there is an undecided voter,
Hmm.
CD was leading, Yankuba was
Uh,
trailing, but there's a significant undecided voter.
yes.
And it turns out Yankuba wins.
Yes. Yeah.
And if depending on who you are, because if you can look at the data and say Cyprus was wrong,
Yeah.
you can also look at the data and say, well, Cyprus might be right.
Yeah.
The undecided voter actually ended up voting.
Hmm. I mean, because Cyprus is not concluding and say that okay, CD is gonna win.
Yeah,
Cyprus is showing that the likely scenario, the
yeah.
likely outcome of that. that this one has this one. For me, the result was right because you also have 49 or 42% undecided.
Yeah.
Add that 42% to likely. If you go back and then do a study and say all those 42%, it might have changed and moved to Yankuba because then Yankuba maybe was more present, and more likable, and so people will decide to go with him when it comes to voting. So the real survey. So what we are trying to do, all of us, is to gauge public opinion, but the real survey is on election day. And so all these things is not conclusive. We're gonna say, okay, because this is what the survey say, this is exactly what is gonna happen on election day. Election day is the real survey. So this one is just projecting, and people can look at it, measure it, and see what they need to do, and rather than taking it as a conclusive issue. That's why I said it's a perception. It changes, it evolves, and tomorrow doing the same survey, you have different results.
What do you think the implications of this is likely to be on the presidential election? On a number of political events as we move on, particularly on the UDP flag bearer selection process.
Yeah, I see people talking about the timing of the survey, but as an advocate, when I release reports, I want it to be. You might not even thinking about that. They just want to do it and then release it. So people are talking about the timing of this in terms of UDP selection. It might have some implication.
Well, in journalism, we do have
Yeah,
we do have concerns releasing. So, for example, the BBC investigation into Macky Sall's brother was finalized before the elections, but they waited until after the elections to publish it
yeah.
because they don't want it to be seen to be influencing the voter. They don't want to be part of the political process.
Yeah, but then for me,
So maybe that's the kind of concern they are raising.
Yeah,
In journalism, we have a similar.
yeah, but then
We
for
have a
us, it's
similar.
like the idea, the purpose of what you are doing is to inform ahead
Is to
of
inform decision making, political
information,
decision
yes,
making.
inform political decision making and all that stuff. So the timing,
Maybe fields are different.
yeah,
Because
timing,
in journalism, we would be
yeah,
a little bit cautious in.
yeah, but so it also depending on your context. We are as much as we talk about it, Gambia is enjoying democracy to an extent that you can do that to add to the debate. So even if you look at some of the way we release our data, it's sometimes in connection to certain event or some activities are happening, we just release it so that we can contribute as part of the discussion to show people, well, this is what you are saying, but there are these are what other ordinary Gambians are also saying. The everyday Gambians, this is what also they're saying. So people will look at it from that. But of course, from my side, I don't see anything wrong with that. But from a politician's perspective, this could be, oh, they're trying to influence this, ignore that.
So, what do you think the implications could be?
Yeah, there's a whole likelihood, like for the issue between the UDP, that Talib is the preferred alternative outside. But this outside, like we were saying, it was not cross-tabulated in terms of party support and all that. So that can have that possible implication. But at the end of the day, I feel it is the party, or because the way they select and everything else is up to the party, and they have to do their own scientific own mechanism to see what is best, not necessarily going up with the survey. But this is also for me the other implication is that it is energizing the population ahead of the 2026 election. It's very far. I think hopefully it's going to be around December-ish. But already we are in the political season and people are discussing all these different political. So the survey is just an extra, output to the already existing debate that people are talking about. So for me, there's a implication when it comes to the selection for UDP, even for NPP, because if people don't want Barrow, in majority don't expect Barrow to run, maybe for them it might be possible to have a rethink. Can somebody else be there that can still
Well,
maintain
Barrow
NPP?
is set that he's having a rematch with
That is,
his father,
yes.
and that's what he is.
But the outcome of the survey could also possibly reset that rematch.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're saying that people don't want both of them to contest. But if both political parties make them to contest, then the high likelihood is that we are getting people that
Barrow
we don't
third.
expect to run. But either way, we have to choose from them or other people.
Or Ousainu is likely to give Barrow his third term.
Yeah, so some people are saying that
That seems to be the most consistent
consistent. Yeah,
opinion
yeah, yeah,
by most of the surveys
yeah.
that you guys have, both Afrobarometer and this one.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of also the potential coalitions, do you think that it could generate conversations around that now?
I think it has already started. I mean, people, I see like people saying, coalition of this, coalition of that need to be together.
Mm.
And some people believe that it is only through a coalition that Barrow could be defeated. But I was saying also,
But why are people set on that? Don't you get frustrated with the idea of a coalition?
no, I mean,
It seems to be a tough thing to deal with when it comes to governance.
yes, but it is expected as well. So for me, it's part
I
of
know,
the
but the way we look at politics is like some kind of a
winner takes all.
business, some
Yeah,
kind of
it's
let's go
transactional.
into coalition and share government positions later.
Yeah, it's transactional. But then that is the
Yeah,
culture. That's the
it's
political culture.
yeah, but it's a terrible political
Yeah.
culture,
So
isn't
no.
it?
So now we need to change that. And how do we change that?
How could we not have one person contest and win an election and do what and do the needful?
That is still possible. But you see, Gambians here, I feel like sometimes if we test one thing that works, we feel everything else should be that way. Yeah. So coalition worked in 2016. Therefore, coalition is likely to win. So it's the same. But 2016 to now, a lot of things has changed. Even
Yeah.
individual candidate can likely win the elections.
Yeah, because I look at the tensions that comes with coalitions, and since we've had the 2016 coalition could barely do anything,
Oh yes. But now
and
you have another coalition in government as well. But the
yeah,
way this one is a party-led coalition.
this is a
So
party-led
it's so
coalition,
one
and with
can learn two things. That why is it that of course this is one of UDP's long argument,
this is not even a coalition. It's more like the
grand
president.
alliance.
Yeah, it's more like other parties are supporting the president's party.
Yeah, but it's a form of a coalition. So there are different forms that one
Yeah, they
can
are
form.
sharing.
Yeah, one a party led, and I think that has been one of UDP's in the past. I don't know now, but in the past it has been one of the major issues that they've been talking
Yeah,
about.
other parties to
Yeah,
come and
before
join
yeah,
us.
other parties because they feel like they are the main opposition. So some people will see that okay, this is the main opposition. We just go rally behind them, and others will start like last year. I think election, Essa, Faal, CA, and others, and they were talking about leadership. So who's gonna lead? Who's gonna those are issues that so part of the political programming is for political parties to start thinking about this alternatives, coalition building, and it should be part of their political strategy as
Mm.
well.
Do you have um, do you see that there may be a dramatic changes in our politics or in the perception around our politics anytime soon or anytime because of this?
No, I'm seeing that what I'm seeing is Gambia is learning. I mean, and sometimes I speak perhaps from a biased perspective because I'm also part of the processes, and I'm seeing that. And but sometimes I want to speak more from an outsider, insider outsider perspective in the sense that when I'm inside, I can see, and when I'm outside, I can also look at a lot of stuff. I feel like we are learning democracy. We are learning what's supposed to be done, but we also have a structural challenge. Structural challenge when it comes to our legal frameworks, when it comes to the way our parties have been doing things.
Mm.
Yeah. So the issue of finance, quite a lot of challenges that are there. But
Mm.
I feel like we are learning this process, and even if you look at the way our politics is going, it's changing. Now they're using media. The media is all over the place. So even advertisement, political advertisement, was never heard of. You're seeing those kind of stuff. So an opinion polling is also becoming part and parcel of this political process. And so for me, this is more of the learning aspect, but it requires that we need to transition.
Mm.
Our politics is going to be more contested. It's going to change also from this everyday ping pong issue to likely more issue based politics that I'm foreseeing that. And I think That is the essence of surveys and all those different stuff, showing and projecting and directing.
But you see more or less all factors constant, same players
Yeah, for now,
coming
yeah, for
coming.
now is the same. Of course, we have about now what 21 political parties, 20 political parties.
Yeah, well, we have more prominent
Yes,
ones.
and then you have also so many individuals wanting to come. I mean, it talks about the opening of the political space. You know, we can criticize Barrow here and there, but I mean, even though it's not his responsibility, but it's the Gambians that are opening up the political space. Because the environment, people are freer today to express themselves. They're freer again to associate with whoever they feel, and they're moving. So when it comes to, so the more political parties, the more political interests you see, you need to also look at it within the context of the evolving environment. And this environment is evolving, and those things we're going to see. But some will come and announce. They are like Nyang Jai will say, political entrepreneurs. They'll just come, maybe declare themselves, and
And do you think that's what coalitions give way to?
yeah, but then that's what opening
Taking
up of the
advantage of the
democratic.
public by somebody who just feel.
Yeah, but then so it is the responsibility of politicians. You know, it's like all of us. We have a right to be elected, the franchise.
Mhm,
We have the right to elect and to be
mhm,
elected.
mhm,
So tomorrow you can move away from being a journalist and join a political
mhm,
and then run for elections. I
mhm,
mean, so it becomes your political responsibility to see
mhm,
how you maneuver those different issues. So if they build a coalition that works for them,
mhm,
it reduces the amount of pressure
mhm,
that the number of candidates are likely going to put on our electoral process.
mhm.
Because remember, we have a marble system, and the marble, we're using barrels, and people don't want that change. So there's a lot of implication for when the democratic space is open, more people participate, but some of this participation, of course, some are opportunities. So opportunities.
I mean, if you look at also it, I mean, I've kept you for too long. Maybe we
Hmm.
should be closing it now. But if you look at also another thing, Barrow um, is the most scrutinized
Yeah.
political leader probably in the history of the Gambia. I said that because there's now an emerging strong culture of investigative journalism in the
Yeah.
Gambia.
Yeah.
Unlike the Jawara days, there's also a very strong presence of media now.
Yeah.
Jawara days, you are still sending letters.
Yeah.
Nobody sends a letter now.
and Radio Gambia.
And Radio Gambia and all of that. Now
Yeah.
you have Facebook, you have TikTok. I think Barrow would be on TikTok soon.
Yeah.
So you have, even I am on TikTok now. I find myself quite chatty these days. And now, so so you have all those issues, and
Mhm.
everybody is talking about corruption, is talking about
Mhm.
underperformance, inefficiency, all these issues, and yet you still have Barrow to a small extent outperforming some key political figures. That has to do largely to the underperformance of the opposition and not to the credit of the president. Isn't that the
Of
case?
course, I mean, this is. But what should the opposition? What should be the role of the opposition?
But isn't that, aren't they failing in that? I mean, is that not an indictment instead of a praise for the president? It seems to
Yeah.
be.
So the role. So the. So sometimes I don't want to elaborate more on this incumbency advantage, because I feel like Gambians now they are convinced that their votes
Yeah.
could bring about change.
Yes.
But this also shows that, I mean, the opposition, as at one time I wrote this, I say if people jam at this thing, the opposition are equally problem.
Yeah.
So people are seeing that from that level. So what should be a role of an opposition in a democratic setup? You know, is it to just hold the government accountable? Well, should it be an opportunity also start sharing your own political agenda, or should you wait for only campaign time then you become visible?
But are they even doing that effectively?
Yeah, sometimes
Because
they.
whatever it is that they are doing, something seems to make me feel like it's not working.
Yeah, but it's at their own level, because also we're talking about politics, and politics is costly. You can have you see, if you're elected and become the government, so you are visible and you could be seen every day because you start running the machinery of the state.
Mhm.
So you become visible. You can easily, people are seeing what you're doing.
Mhm.
But if you're not given any mandate, then what is expected of you is to
But
be an
these people
alternative.
are giving mandate.
The opposition?
Yeah, because they not the mandate of the president, but they're giving mandate all over the place. Like they have the
The local,
councils.
yes.
Like for example, if you look at it, by the
But
time
you're
you
looking at UDP. Me, I'm looking at the opposition as a whole.
well,
But then it's, yeah,
UDP
it's well, it's the
represents the
main
opposition.
opposition. Yeah.
They represent the opposition, and of course, what applies to UDP applies to others as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So is Faal's popularity compared to Barrow, others' popularity compared to Barrow, but UDP primarily because UDP holds half of the sky above the country. I
Yeah.
mean, they have 4 councils. The president has 4 councils. They have 16 lawmakers. The president has 18.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of political presence, they are not an opposition. They are a
Yeah, they're
government.
very
They are
present.
already in government.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but in terms of now contesting for the state house, the
That's
president
a
is still
separate, yeah.
outperforming them. And regardless of underperformance of the president, which seems to be very visible in all the surveys.
You know, sometimes
That's what I cannot
the
relate.
problem is also how do you frame being an opposition? Are you like just reactionary opposition, or one that dictates the way that the government should?
But in this case, these folks are right at the heart of the government itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Except the executive and the judiciary. They are in the legislature, they're in the councils, they're in the local
So in the
administration.
councils, they are the incumbent in the council.
Yes.
And the Gambian setup is
It's interesting, but that's what I'm saying. Like, for example, by the time Ousainu lost the presidential election, he became in history the most powerful political leader to have lost the contest for State House.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because he had 21 National Assembly members. He had all but one chairperson.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
all
in
but
2017,
2021.
2021, yeah.
Do you see it?
Yeah,
and
because
so,
they were I mean, and for me, that's why.
Holding the executive is significant, but I can't. The math doesn't make sense to me. I mean, something is fundamentally flawed in.
Being an opposition, you have to also have that strategy of running that. I mean, especially if you're present in parliament, because you have your own caucus, you have your own mechanism. Like we've seen what some of these parliamentarians are doing. You see something, you bring it to that. So you make parliament a parliamentary. I mean, a place where political issues are really discussed. That could also help, but also people in our country, people are more interested in what structures are being left rather than the quality of discussion you are making. People are more interested in sampana yon, sampana this, sampana that, because those are tangible things that people want to see. And sometimes this is the reality. So they don't even look at the opposition as.
But the councils could have done the same thing.
But then what is the monies of the council? The councils are,
based on the local government commission, though, the councils are not necessarily poor, they are mismanaged.
Everywhere in this country. I mean, but the other question that they're not raising, they're looking at, they're replicating mostly what government is doing, collecting tax, collecting this. But they need to think about means of making money. And this is what people don't think about in this society. Even at the VDC level, Village Development Committee, they have powers. But every day you see VDCs fighting among each other. I mean, that's why I sometimes talk about the need for learning, but the need to adjust the structural mechanisms that continue to to challenge us. And these are realities. So, but I mean, for me, I'm still studying the Gambian political behavior. I mean, it's really
interesting. But really just finally, I mean, I know a lot of folks have different questions regarding who the funders are, where is the money coming from, regarding the different issues such as the questions that were asked, how they were framed, and why you chose this and that 3 people from one political party. But does it, from your assessment, in any way invalidate the data?
No, not at all. I mean, the idea of a data is to, for me, the way I see it, I see it as a contribution, not a final or a conclusive issue. But of course, whenever you release something, a report, people will have their opinion about the report, and then they will start some to discredit, some to better understand, because certain questions are also context sensitive. And also especially when it comes to funding, they believe the one that funds is always the one that dictates.
The one who
But
pays the piper.
in most cases also, I mean, for us that are like most surveys are very expensive. So there could be a funder, but the funder cannot change the data. If you even if you change your data, then you're creating your own credibility problem, but not the funder's own issue. So the data that
Because
you collect,
because the issue also is that in this case the data has been collected by Cyprus,
yeah,
not Gambia
yeah.
participate.
I
So
mean, Gambia participate.
Gambia participate
Yeah, give
high.
higher surplus. We do that. Last
Yeah.
time we did survey for IRI, we were hired. It's not so we do the survey. We are the scientific institution.
Yeah.
So Cyprus is the scientific institution,
Yeah.
and they follow the scientific method, and then they finish the data, and then they meet their deliverables. So they give it to Gambia participate, but the document now belongs to Gambia participate as the one that give the I mean contracted Cyprus to do that. But at the end of the day, what is important for me is the science behind it, and they've been very clear in terms of who they interview, how they do that. So for me, that is enough. I look at that, I say, well, we have a survey, it's a contribution. So tomorrow you can do another survey, and then you come with it, it's another contribution, contribution, contribution. So that's how we have to see that, and this is also all part of the learning process. Civil society before, I mean, we were not engaged in all this different stuff, but now we are getting in that because also within the civil society, advocacy is now being discussed as evidence-based advocacy, not just advocacy that is based on this is what I think. You know, what you think is what you think, but what about what everybody else also think? But also, people should not look at the survey as if it favors certain particular group, but it is also showing that if at all it gave everybody 100%, then people could look at that. But it says that not everybody agrees. Yes, even though the majority of people that agree are here,
Yeah.
but there are other people that disagree. So for me, that is also about that. But then the reliability and validity, for one to even question that, one has to conduct the same process, the same way they do it, and then see whether they will
Look at the alternatives.
and then have an alternative. But otherwise, I mean, I think this is very good. It's very also very timely. That it for me, I like the conversation. It must be continuous. It must continue, and people will disagree, but eventually people will also make the choice.
But
And that's what is
aren't you
important.
also concerned? This is the final question, I promise. Aren't you concerned though that even where we may have a Barrow president in 2026, it could still come at a huge cost to, in terms of the mandate, in terms of the popularity of the mandate, I mean, he could still be a hugely minority president.
Yeah, but does he care about being the minority president as long as he's the president? In 2016, he was
Yeah,
a
but it
minority president.
matters.
I mean,
Popularity of the mandate matters.
so the issue stops for me. The issue stops at our like again our simple majority. One, does he have the right, the legal right to contest? Yes. So that is checked. So this contest, how how our votes translated. That's the electoral system. We say it's simple majority. So whoever leads with one vote, yeah. So we check that. So all those things are legitimate. But for instance, if it turns out to get this 31, and like this one, the overall go back to Cyprus overall, he get 31, Talib 18, Darboe, maybe not Darboe or somebody else, 12, another 13, 14, 15, and even undecided might belong to another political party. It shows that more people did not vote for Barrow, but he's still the legitimate elected president. So it's the system that we have, and if people don't want that, I mean, and this is where the law comes in. That's where the need to go to parliament and change the. For me, that's why I wanted a new constitution to bring the absolute majority because then it addresses this whole question. Like the 2021 election, nobody is talking about that because that was an emphatic mandate. 53% of the population. I mean, nobody is saying like less people voted for him. We now have more people voting for Barrow, and unlike what happened in 2026 in 2016, and it might be the same for 2026 if he well he said he's going to if he continues.
All right. Sait Matty, thank you very much for being here with us, and we appreciate this time.
It's always it's a pleasure to be here, and invite me next time.
Inshallah.